You believe you're chasing happiness, but what you're really chasing is stimulation. And stimulation is not the same as fulfillment. Fulfillment is deep, quiet, and steady. Stimulation is loud, short-lived, and addictive. It's the difference between a flame that warms you through the night and a spark that flares for a second, then leaves you in the dark again. Yet most people have built their lives around sparks. They scroll through endless feeds, jump from one video to the next, one conversation to another, one plan to the next. They feel a temporary rise in their emotions, a sense of excitement. But as soon as the moment passes, they're back to that same empty space they were trying to escape from in the first place. It's no surprise, because stimulation was never meant to fill you. It was meant to distract you. Like sugar, it can make you feel full for a moment, but it has no nourishment. And the cruel thing is, the more you rely on it, the more your inner hunger grows. You start to feel restless when there's silence, anxious when there's nothing new, uncomfortable when you're left alone with your thoughts. So you keep chasing the next thing, thinking this time it will be enough. But deep down, you already know it won't be. Real fulfillment isn't about what excites you for a moment. It's about what sustains you for a lifetime. It's not about a temporary rush of dopamine, but about the calm certainty that your life has meaning. And meaning is never found in constant noise. It's found in depth, in doing things that may not always feel thrilling, but leave you feeling whole afterwards. Think about it. A deep conversation that leaves you reflective is worth more than 100 small talk exchanges. An hour spent creating something from your heart will nourish you more than a day spent scrolling through other people's creations. The truth is, most people have trained their minds to only crave the quick hit, and they've forgotten how to sit with the slow burn. They've forgotten how to find joy in stillness, in patience, in building something step by step. And when life feels too slow, they mistake it for emptiness. But it's not emptiness, it's space, and space is necessary for growth. Imagine planting a seed. You water it, you give it sunlight, you nurture it. But you can't make it grow faster by digging it up every few hours to check if it's sprouting. In the same way, you can't grow a meaningful life by constantly interrupting it with the next distraction. Fulfillment requires staying with something long enough for roots to form. It means choosing activities, relationships, and goals that actually matter to you, even if they're not always exciting in the moment. When you choose only stimulation, you live in cycles, highs and lows, excitement and emptiness. You keep running in circles and wondering why you feel tired, disconnected, and unsatisfied. But when you choose fulfillment, you live in seasons. There are times of planting, times of growth, times of harvest, and even times of rest, but every season is connected, every moment is part of a larger story. And that larger story gives your life weight and depth. The challenge is, fulfillment doesn't demand much from you in the beginning, but it requires everything from you over time. It asks for discipline, patience, and honesty. It asks you to sit through boredom without escaping, to keep going when results aren't visible, to commit when leaving would be easier. Stimulation, on the other hand, demands nothing. You just reach for your phone, turn on a show, meet someone new, buy something you don't need. And for a brief moment, you feel alive, but that moment fades quickly, and the emptiness returns stronger than before. So if you feel empty often, it's worth asking yourself, am I feeding my soul or just my senses? Am I giving myself what I truly need or just what I crave in the moment? Because the answer to why you feel this way is often hiding in that distinction. The day you stop relying on sparks and start building your own steady flame, everything will change. You can be moving every single day and still be going nowhere. You wake up, you follow the same routine, you do the things you've always done, and at the end of the day you feel strangely tired but also strangely unfulfilled. That is the weight of living on autopilot. Life keeps happening around you, and you keep going through the motions. But somewhere along the way you stopped truly living. You stopped being awake to your own existence. Autopilot is dangerous because it feels comfortable. It feels safe. You know exactly what's coming next, so there's no uncertainty, no risk. But what you don't realize is that this comfort comes at the cost of your purpose. It's like drifting in a boat without a map. You may not feel lost at first because the water is calm, but eventually you notice that you have no idea where you're heading, and deep inside, you start to feel the emptiness of that directionless drifting. You weren't meant to live the same day over and over again until your time runs out. You weren't meant to merely exist. When you're on autopilot, you stop questioning the path you're on. You stop asking if this is really the life you want. You trade curiosity for routine, and in that trade, you lose the spark that makes life feel alive. The signs are subtle at first. You stop feeling excited in the morning. You stop noticing the small details around you. They start blending into each other, and you can't remember what you did last week because it felt just like the week before. And that's when emptiness seeps in, not because your life is bad, but because it has lost its depth. You are moving, but you are not progressing. Breaking free from autopilot requires awareness, and awareness requires courage. Because the moment you truly wake up, you might realize that the life you're living is not the life you want, and that truth is uncomfortable. But discomfort is the starting point of growth. When you allow yourself to question, to reflect, to ask, why am I doing this? You give yourself the power to change. It's not about throwing your whole life away or making impulsive moves. It's about regaining control over your choices. Instead of moving through the day, because that's what you've always done, you begin to move with intention. You ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like in a year? In 5 years? In 10 years? And then you start making small decisions every day that align with that vision. The truth is, autopilot isn't always about laziness. Sometimes it's a coping mechanism. Sometimes you stay on autopilot because facing your real thoughts and feelings is too heavy. You convince yourself it's easier to just keep doing what you know. But easier is often what keeps you stuck. Every day you stay asleep to your own life is another day you're drifting further from the person you're meant to be. You have to take back the wheel. That doesn't mean you'll suddenly know exactly where you're going, but it does mean you're willing to steer, to choose, to course correct when needed. It means you start noticing your surroundings again, start paying attention to the moments that pass by, start engaging with your life instead of just observing it. When you step out of autopilot, the world feels different. Time slows down. You start to see opportunities you couldn't see before. You start to feel gratitude for things you once overlooked. The way the morning light falls through your window, the way a genuine laugh feels in your chest, the way a single conversation can change your perspective. This is what living actually feels like. If you feel empty, it may not be because you're broken or missing something inside. It may simply be because you've been asleep at the wheel for too long. And the moment you wake up, you'll realize that the road ahead has been waiting for you all along. There is a voice inside you that has been speaking to you for years. It is not loud. It doesn't scream for your attention. It speaks in moments of stillness, in the quiet before you fall asleep, in the silence between distractions. But somewhere along the way, you stopped listening. You learned how to cover it with noise, with constant activity, with endless conversations, with the comfort of other people's opinions. And because you stopped listening, that voice grew fainter. Yet it has never disappeared. The reason that voice matters is because it carries your truth. It tells you when something isn't right, when a path you're walking isn't yours, when the life you're building doesn't feel like home. But instead of trusting it, you've learned to doubt it. You've been taught to trust what's popular, what's logical, what's expected. So every time your inner voice whispered, "This isn't for me," you convinced yourself you were overthinking. Every time it nudged you toward a risk, you told yourself it wasn't practical. Over time, ignoring it became a habit. And the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be kept growing. That gap is where emptiness lives. It's not that you don't know what you want. Deep down, you do. But knowing requires listening, and listening requires slowing down. And slowing down feels uncomfortable in a world that tells you to move faster, to achieve more, to never stop. The truth is, the emptiness you feel is often just the weight of unexpressed truth sitting inside you. You have feelings you haven't admitted, dreams you haven't acted on, and boundaries you haven't set. That's why you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Because the connection you crave isn't from others, it's from yourself. Listening to that voice isn't always pleasant. Sometimes it will tell you things you don't want to hear. It will force you to confront the fact that the relationship you're in is draining you. It will make you admit that the career you're pursuing is not aligned with your values. It will reveal that you've been making choices to please others instead of honoring yourself. That honesty can be uncomfortable, even painful. But that pain is the beginning of freedom. Because once you see the truth, you can no longer lie to yourself without feeling the cost. Most people think they're afraid of failure. But in reality, they're afraid of their own truth. They're afraid of how much their life would have to change if they actually followed it. That's why they drown it out. They think that avoiding it will protect them from discomfort. But avoiding it doesn't protect you. It traps you. It keeps you in a life that looks fine on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. When you begin to listen again, you might be surprised by how much clarity comes. You won't need to seek so much advice from others because you already know. You won't need as much external validation because you'll trust yourself more. The choices you make will feel lighter, not because they're easier, but because they're yours. And there is a unique kind of peace that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your own truth. The voice inside you doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't expect you to have all the answers right now. All it asks is that you stop ignoring it, that you give it room to speak, that you learn to sit in the quiet without rushing to fill it. At first, it may feel awkward. You may not know how to tell which thoughts are fear and which are truth, but the more you practice listening, the clearer it becomes. And when you finally honor that voice, the emptiness begins to fade. Not because everything in your life suddenly changes, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself. From the moment you were old enough to understand the world, you were taught to measure yourself. You were given standards, grades to earn, trophies to win, milestones to reach. And somewhere in that process, you learned that love, respect, and happiness were things you had to deserve. You started believing that you had to prove yourself before you could feel worthy. That belief is still with you now, quietly shaping everything you do. It's why you push yourself harder when you're already exhausted. It's why you feel guilty when you rest. It's why no matter what you achieve, it never feels like enough. You tell yourself, when I finally reach this goal, then I'll feel good about myself. Or, when I look a certain way, when I earn a certain amount, when I'm admired by enough people, then I'll feel whole. But here's the truth. If you don't feel worthy now, nothing you achieve will fix that. It will give you a moment of relief, yes, but it will fade quickly, and you'll be chasing the next achievement, the next upgrade, the next proof that you are enough. This is not ambition. This is survival mode disguised as ambition. The emptiness you feel is not a lack of success. It's a lack of self-acceptance. You've been trying to buy your worth with effort, with sacrifice, with overachievement, but worth cannot be bought. It's not a reward you unlock after proving yourself. It's something you are born with. And the only reason you can't feel it is because you've been taught to believe it needs to be earned. Think about how you treat yourself when you make a mistake. Do you give yourself grace, or do you punish yourself? Do you see it as part of being human, or do you take it as proof that you're not enough yet? The way you answer that reveals how deeply you've tied your value to performance. And when your value depends on performance, you'll always be chasing. Because no matter how much you do, there will always be more to do. It's not that striving for improvement is bad. Growth is part of life. But growth should come from a place of self-respect, not self-rejection. When you think you have to earn your worth, every step of progress is poisoned with pressure. You don't enjoy the journey because you're running from a fear. The fear that you are not enough as you are. And fear-driven progress always leads to burnout, not fulfillment. When you start from a place of worthiness, the entire game changes. You don't need success to feel valuable. You bring your value into everything you do. You're not climbing to escape emptiness, you're building because you're already whole. The goals are still there, but they no longer define you. Wins feel joyful, not desperate. Losses feel like lessons, not proof that you're broken. The hardest part is letting go of the belief that you have to prove yourself. For years, maybe decades, it has been your fuel. It has pushed you to work harder, to be better, to never stop. And now I'm telling you to stop using it. That can feel like I'm asking you to give up your drive, but here's the truth. You will not lose your drive. You will free it. You will stop spending energy trying to prove something that was already true. You are worthy. Without the job, without the money, without the applause, without the approval, you are worthy. And when you finally allow yourself to believe that, you stop living like you are constantly auditioning for your own life. You stop looking at every goal as a test of your value. You start seeing your efforts for what they are. Expressions of who you already are, not attempts to become someone you're not. The emptiness begins to fade the moment you realize you were never chasing achievement. You were chasing permission to accept yourself. When life becomes heavy, the first instinct for most people is to escape. You find ways to avoid the weight you're carrying. Ways that don't solve the problem, but help you forget it for a little while. Some people do it through their phones, endlessly scrolling so they don't have to sit with their thoughts. Others do it through work, filling every hour so there's no time left to feel. Some turn to comfort food, alcohol, meaningless conversations, or a constant search for entertainment. On the surface, it looks like harmless distraction. But underneath, it's avoidance, and avoidance always comes with a cost. What you run from doesn't disappear. It waits. It hides under the surface, growing heavier, waiting for a moment when you're tired, when your guard is down, and then it rises again. That's why you can go weeks without thinking about something painful. And then one quiet evening, it all comes flooding back. The truth is, avoiding discomfort only guarantees that it will return stronger the next time. The mind has a way of protecting itself. It tells you, this is too much for me right now, I'll deal with it later. But later often never comes. You start to believe that as long as you keep moving, as long as you keep distracting yourself, you're safe. But deep down, you know you're not. Because the more you run, the more your life starts to feel like a series of temporary shelters instead of a solid home. Facing what you've been avoiding is not about punishing yourself with pain. It's about reclaiming your freedom. Every feeling you avoid is like a chain around your mind. It limits how deeply you can connect, how much joy you can feel, how present you can be in your own life. When you face those feelings, you break the chains. You might think it will destroy you, but the opposite is true. It will free you. There's a reason the things you avoid feel so heavy. It's because they're connected to something important. A conversation you've been putting off might be the key to healing a relationship. A decision you've been delaying might be the doorway to a new chapter. A truth you've been refusing to admit might be the first step toward living authentically. Avoidance may protect you from pain in the short term, but it also locks you out of growth, love, and peace. When you finally stop running, you begin to see that the fear of facing something is often worse than the thing itself. The mind magnifies it in your absence. The longer you avoid it, the bigger and darker it seems. But when you turn toward it and really look, you realize you are capable of handling far more than you thought. You realize that pain doesn't destroy you, resistance to pain does. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. The emptiness you feel is often the result of avoiding emotions that are waiting to be felt. That numbness isn't because you feel too little. It's because you're suppressing too much. The human heart is not designed to hold pain forever. It's designed to process it, release it, and make space for new life. But it can't do that if you keep slamming the door every time it tries. The process of facing what you've been avoiding isn't instant. It takes patience. It takes courage. Sometimes it takes help from others. But the moment you choose to face it, you shift the balance of power. It no longer controls you. You begin to see that the very thing you thought would break you is the thing that will make you stronger, clearer, more grounded. You cannot outrun yourself. No matter how far you go, your feelings will follow. And the moment you stop running is the moment you stop living in fear of them. You take care of your body because you have to. You feed it, you clean it, you give it rest when it's tired. You take care of your mind because the world demands it. You learn new skills, solve problems, make decisions every day. But the part of you that often gets neglected is the part that cannot be seen, your soul. You can be healthy, strong, and intelligent, and still feel a deep hunger inside if you have not fed the part of you that gives life its meaning. The soul doesn't live on the same food as the body or the mind. It is not nourished by calories or facts. It is nourished by connection, by beauty, by gratitude, by the moments that pull you out of yourself and remind you that you are part of something bigger. And yet, in the rush of daily life, these things are often the first to be sacrificed. You tell yourself you'll slow down and reflect when you have time. You'll practice gratitude when life feels easier. You'll connect with something greater when things are less busy. But days turn into months, months into years, and without realizing it, you've gone long stretches without giving your soul what it needs. That emptiness you sometimes feel is often a sign that you are spiritually undernourished. You've been filling your schedule, but not your spirit. You've been chasing goals without pausing to remember why they matter. You've been interacting with people without truly connecting to them. The soul starves quietly, but when it does, life begins to feel flat. The things that used to excite you lose their spark. Even success feels strangely hollow. Feeding the soul doesn't require grand gestures. It's not always about traveling too far, off places, or spending hours in meditation. Sometimes it's as simple as watching the sunrise without rushing. Sitting in silence for a few minutes and feeling your breath. Listening deeply when someone speaks without thinking of your reply. Serving someone without expecting anything in return. These small acts might seem insignificant, but they are meals for the soul. It's also about what you allow in. Just like you're careful with the food you eat for your body, you must be mindful of the energy you consume for your spirit. Constant negativity, shallow conversations, endless comparison. These are junk food for the soul. They fill you up in the moment but leave you feeling worse in the long run. Replacing them with things that uplift you. Inspiring books, honest conversations, nature, stillness can transform the way you feel from the inside out. There's another reason people forget to feed their soul. It doesn't scream for attention like the body does. Your body will make you stop if you're too tired. Your mind will force you to pause when it's overwhelmed. But your soul will quietly endure neglect. It won't push back with pain or fever or stress in obvious ways. Instead, it will slowly withdraw. It will make life feel like it's passing by without meaning. It will leave you feeling like something is missing, even when you can't explain what. The truth is, the soul needs more than just moments of peace. It needs purpose. It needs to know that your life is about more than survival or personal gain. It needs to know that you are connected to others, to the world, to something greater than yourself. That connection can come through creativity, through service, through faith, through nature. The form doesn't matter as much as the intention. When you give yourself to something bigger, the emptiness begins to fill. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is that feeding your soul is not selfish. It's necessary. You cannot pour into others if you are empty inside. You cannot truly enjoy life if you're only living on the surface of it. The deeper you go within yourself, the richer everything outside of you becomes. When you begin to nourish your soul consistently, you stop feeling like you're endlessly chasing something. You stop feeling like you're missing a piece of yourself, because you finally remember that the fullness you've been searching for has been within you all along. It just needed to be fed.